Andy and I did make a small wager on where you're gonna fall on this. You're gonna fall on.
I believe I'll fall right in the middle, like
That's
smack
what
in the
Andy
middle.
said. That's what Andy said. I 1,000,000% disagree. I think you're gonna get as far as I did through and be like, "What the fuck is it?" And I'm not lobbying right now for you to be on my side. I am just saying, when I was halfway through, I literally was like, "Oh my god! If Kevin sees this, he's gonna be so angry." It's just, and frankly, you and I have sided closer together recently on topics than in previous times. So I
That's
think
true.
that I'm flowing with you a little bit with what I think. Well, not what I think you like, but with an understanding of what your palate is.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm way wrong, or you're going to be like, Jesus Christ, Andy, I don't want you to know this much about me.
Yeah.
Because it was rough.
That
rough is being courteous.
That I believe. Welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I'm your host this week, Kevin. I am joined this week by Andrew and Andy. I think this is the first time it's been the three of us alone with no adult supervision, so that's neat. We have, unbeknownst to most people watching, we have been spending way too long in the pre-show, so we're going to jump right into stuff this week. After having been off last week, we're going to jump into another... probably the last of our Halloweenish horror discussions, but we're going to talk about Hereditary. Everybody managed to watch it, I think, this week, and this was born out of our discussion a couple weeks ago of, scariest movies of all time. And I think for sure, because Sinister was the last one we watched, right? That's the one.
Yeah.
I will say that I think Hereditary was definitely at least creepier than Sinister. It was certainly a slow burn. It's definitely a long setup. I think there's that moment in the early third that's like the oh fuck moment that really sets it in motion. I think what makes Hereditary really cool too is the fact that you can go read about it afterwards. There's a shit ton of Easter eggs in this movie that are very easy to miss. The lore behind it is real, as far as the things that people actually have believed at some point in our lives, right? The demon that we're talking about is a real one.
You're giving me chills talking about that right now,
right? Toni Collette
killed it
right there. It is Toni Collette. She's amazing. I love her and everything she does. She's intense. And I think it never gets to the point that it's cheesy, right? It never gets corny. But although I will say the one moment that did make me laugh was at the very end when the headless body is floating up into the
treehouse.
Yeah, the treehouse. I was like, eh. But other than that, that's for which I should be able to accept because 10 minutes earlier she was crawling on the walls, but just the way that it kind of floated and then floated up into the, I was like, meh. Yeah, it's fucking wild.
For a second though. Okay, so basically, and we're gonna go back and forth on this. Okay, so
yeah,
floating thing actually, because I gotta throw in some anime in here. That was very Evangelion. So in the third Evangelion movie, and I feel like that was this Ari Aster dude. I swear to God, he watches anime but doesn't tell anybody, because I feel like there's Attack on Titan stuff in the movie he did afterwards, which was of course Midsummer, and in this movie, Evangelion, when you cut off someone's head or something's head, that allows a spirit transfer. So, there's lots of headless Evangelions floating and doing shit like that. So when I saw that headless treehouse shit, I was just like, yo, I'm still, again, I wish you guys could see my fucking bumps, dude. Like that was creepy shit. And the last like 20 minutes of that movie was insane. And I gotta
Yeah.
say, for
Yeah.
me, what also creeped me the fuck out, whatever, I'm gonna curse, was like those naked people that were showing up. Like I just thought they were visions, dude. And they weren't visions. They were actually
No, they're like the
there.
legit
They were
people.
the
Like,
fucking cult members, man. So like, I feel like that movie played with your mind. Like, okay, is this real or is this being imagined? You know, and so by the end, when everything's being revealed and you're peeling the layers back, you know. And one thing I will also say really quickly is like, I'm not gonna lie, like I am a curious person, okay? So the first seance scene, I'm not gonna lie, I was actually like, wow, that looks kind of cool. Like in my head, I was like, I might want to try that sometime. But the movie quickly
yeah,
killed
if you
that
fuck
shit.
around with the seance, you're gonna find out. That's how it goes. Fuck around and find out.
Like never, dude, never. But I want to watch it again because I feel like there are things that you definitely miss, but it was very well put together. Right? It was meticulously put together. But yeah, man, I just gotta say it stuck with me, and I liked it even more than I thought it would. And it just keeps on, it's almost like it has an aftertaste that for me just keeps getting better. That's for me. So yeah, I'm glad I watched it, but it freaked me the fuck out, personally.
Yeah, it definitely, without question, was creepier than
Sinister.
for sure.
Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, same. I mean, it was the I didn't figure it out until they poured it on the plate. You know, it was like I told the chef to make me something that I wouldn't expect, and then they brought me courses, and I'm like, I get this, and then they're like, oh, I don't get that. Like it was fantastic. It was well done. It was well acted. Uh, I don't know that the boy actor. He was in the Green Knight. I don't know his name.
I don't know his name either, but he's
It's
awesome
just
in both.
something Wolf. I think it's like Adam Wolf or something like that.
Sure.
It's not what I expected his name to be. I thought he was.
Alex
I
Wolff.
actually thought he
Alex
was
Wolff.
Alex Wolf. I thought he
What
was somebody else actually, but yeah.
whatever he did a fantastic job, I thought, of playing somebody who is scared, but uh not just scared. Like he wasn't like the typical blonde in a horror movie who was just like screaming at every ghost that showed up. Like he was terrified. That's probably the best way I can. He was terrified through the whole movie. He didn't know what was happening. And even
Well,
at the end, when we figure it out, he is
yeah,
clearly terrified that now I'm a demon. Like
When
it
you wake up
was,
yeah.
in the night and your mom is standing above you, like he's like, why do you what like he was such a tortured, broken boy, and you can understand why. And again, like this is where I editorialize a bit. Like I'm like, okay, first of all, Gabriel Byrne, I think you actually play Satan in like or the
Yes, yeah,
devil in
yeah,
a Schwarzenegger movie. So for me, it was
yes,
kind of
yeah.
a cool like turn to have him be this mellow guy. I'm jumping around. But to me, one of the freakiest moments ever was when at first she throws the book in the fire, tries to light it, and it's like setting her on fire, right? I wasn't ready. You guys don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When she's like, please throw it in the fire. He's like, oh, fuck it, and he throws it in the fire and then he goes up. I was like, yo. And then like after that, then it's on. Like Payman
yeah.
has fully taken her over and she's hanging on the ceiling. And I'm just like, what the fuck? But anyway, why do you hate me so much, mom? Like she's yelling at him. Like he's taking so much shit. He killed his fucking sister by accident. Like this is a kid who is fucked up. And he played that so well. I mean, he's literally crying like a baby at points when he's a grown ass kid, but he's
Yeah,
crying.
yeah,
That's acting, dude. Like,
yeah.
I get it. Like, I would hate to be in that family. Like, holy shit. Like, holy shit. I'm sorry. I just had to jump in there because, like, yes, Alex
No,
killed it.
jump.
Killed it.
But like even the dinner scene where he's like trying to
Mhm.
call out his mom, like, tell me how you feel, and then she does. And the way Tony Collette, I mean,
Yeah.
she just destroyed that moment. The dad came across like bewildered, and the son is like, he understands, like when you and I were talking about Black Adam, like, I disagree with you, but I see your point. Where I feel like he's the same way. Like, I don't agree with you, but fuck, yeah, I see your point too.
But you know
Like,
what though? Like in a way, fuck her. Because like when she says, take your sister to the damn party, the sister even says, I don't want to go. I was mad at her. I think she's a
Yeah.
horrible mom.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like
well,
I think
she tried to
caused-
fucking murder him while she was pregnant. Like, she is not a good mom.
But at the same time, I feel like that was because on some level, I think she knew her kids were fucking cursed, and she was trying to.
Oh
prevent them.
yeah. The more you read into it and think about it, like, she's always known, like, her firstborn, or sorry, her daughter was supposed to be a son, right? Even the name Charlie is
Shit, I didn't think
generally a
about that
boy's
till
name,
just now.
like, and so that's why, like, especially if you read into it afterwards, like, read what the idea behind the story was, is that the Paimon demon, or Paimon, or whatever it is, was actually in her at birth.
Yes.
So has always been there in the daughter.
Yes.
Because the mom wouldn't let, knowing that something is wrong, like, she gets it even if she doesn't get it. So she wouldn't let her mom near her son, because she knew on some level that wasn't okay. And so and she even says in the mourning ceremony, or not the mourning, but the group where the group, and she says, I gave her my daughter.
Yes.
She literally uses those words, and that's actually what happened. And so, like, when the daughter dies, when she hits that pole, that was planned by the cultists. Like, if you look at the pole has their little symbol carved into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the scene, the way the son, just to use him as the example again, the way that he reacts to that is so
real,
like,
visceral,
emotional and palatable. Yeah, like, he just sits. He's just like, because you can see him. He's like, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
And
even the way they filmed that, where they showed him just his face, driving home, and then in bed, and then they're just on his face the whole time until the mom screams.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was
breaking down. Fuck.
That was such good directing. That was such good cinematography. Like, I don't know how you could have done that better. No. I mean, that was visceral. Like, we're all in, like, we're all watching it, just like, we know there was a small part of me that, like, thought that she was going to be, like, awake in the car, and then that would be a whole different story. But the whole, most of the part of me was like, yeah, he just killed his sister on purpose or not.
Was going to be like, I didn't think her head was going to be gone. I just thought, but decapitated. I mean, because I want to keep it moving, but at the same time, I'm loving talking about this damn movie. Like, it was good. It was good. And A24, I was like, before actually Everything Everywhere All at Once, this movie was the biggest grosser for A24.
Really?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That actually makes perfect sense to me. It's so good. And I think too, one of the brilliant things they did in the marketing, is the poster behind me, and my big fat head's in the way, but, like, the girl is in all the promotional stuff, right? The daughter.
Yeah.
She actually, like, even though her character's pivotal, she's not a big part of the movie.
No.
But
like 15 lines.
Yeah. And there's that the moment that she cuts the bird's head off, and you're like, what the fuck? Well, she has always been doing that.
Yeah.
So that box in the opening scene, what they said is in the original script, in the original shooting script, you actually see inside the box, and there's like more headless shit in there. So it's like crazy. Like, the level that they went to on the story is is impressive.
So what do you think was all about? And I'll read about it, but like, so when she always keeps sleeping in that fucking tree house, like, is that like, 'cause I think the grandmother used to sleep there, and then the girl used to sleep there. Like that whole tree house was just always like the epicenter of this
Yeah.
ceremony, man. Like Ari Aster is a twisted motherfucker. I'm sorry. Like you're talented, but the fact that you can have both this movie with all that lore and layer and then come back and do Midsummer, which was a twisted movie. Have you guys all seen that movie, by the way?
I have
Midsommar?
not seen Midsummer yet.
I
Okay.
haven't seen either.
I'm
Okay.
woefully behind on my my A24, but funny enough, Showtime logo is here. All these are on Showtime right now.
Excellent.
So if you have Showtime, you can go watch them all. And it turns out apparently I subscribed to Showtime at some point, so I've got that. I've been paying for that for God knows how long.
So Midsummer's worth seeing. I've been on the fence.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Midsummer.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right.
Florence Pugh, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's one of her earlier.
Elena Belova is
earlier
one of her
roles.
breakout roles, actually.
Yeah.
I'll watch that tomorrow.
Oh yeah, no, I think you'll like it. Oh, actually, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I got him.
So how's that for a transition? We know we loved Hereditary, it was good, but
Yeah.
Black Adam, I have not seen it. I have no intention of seeing it anytime soon because reasons. I'm too far from the theater, and I already have my tickets for Wakanda Forever, so that's my next movie trip. So you guys unload on Black Adam, because one of my favorite fucking things in the world. I have to say this to everybody first before you guys start talking, because so I will talk about eventually what I was watching on the plane as Andy was in the theater live tweeting us his reaction to Black Adam, which started off so positive and deteriorated so quickly. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life, because we all know that generally the most accepting person on the show used to be Pete. It's Andy. Andy loves everything. And Andy fucking hated Black Adam. And I knew by the time he was done reviewing it that at least Andrew and I would not hate it, that we would like it more than Andy, because of the way that, like, the expectations that we had, I felt were more manageable, and so we were going in so clearly open-eyed that we'd accept it. And sure enough, Andrew goes and sees it and actually loves it, which I am now in this weird fucking flipped out multiverse where Andy hated a movie and Andrew loved a movie, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So go.
So
yeah, go first. You talk first.
No. We always start with the good, but I want to preface this with what you said earlier, Andrew. You and I are usually pretty in sync. Like 98% of the time, I feel like Morbius is an outlier, and clearly Black Adam's an outlier.
And Rings of Power is an outlier.
Kind of.
How far did you get in Rings of Power, though?
Me? Episode 4. So I have to go. I've got to go 5, 6, and 7. Apparently, it gets better at 5. But right now, I'm just kind of like I'm forcing myself to watch it.
Yeah, and that's fair. So, anyways, continue with Black Adam. But yes, that's fair.
And to be fair, I love Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon. About halfway through, I had to force myself to finish. I did totally end up enjoying it. I thought it was a well done show. I have my criticisms are still abound. Like I'm not retracting any of those, but for the most part, you and I are in lockstep.
Okay, I agree.
I will let you pick. Do you want me to share my detractors first, or and then defend them? Or do you want to share the attractors and let me battle them? You can pick. Being you're the Jedi here and I'm the Sith, you get to pick.
All right. Well, in that case, I'll just go. I'll just go, and I'll just it's going to be a recreation of our conversation earlier today. So I'm just going to come right out and just say, yeah, I went, first of all, my biggest fear about Black Adam was I thought it was going to be the Rock show. I thought his ego was going to go out of control and it was going to be terrible because it was just all about the Rock. And that is absolutely not what happened. This film was more about like the people. And I like that because it's consistent across in the film as well as outside the film, because the Rock's always talking about we gotta do it for the fans, we gotta do it for the fans. And this film ends up being a celebration of this like country that he's from. In the movie, it's called oh my god, it's gonna bug me. Anyway, from this
Kandak.
Kandak, yeah, Kandak, Kandak, whatever. So he's from this country, and he ends up being kind of like their protector. And it's about so much more than just Black Adam. It's about really the coming together of the Justice Society. So you've got like Hawkman over here, you've got Dr. Fate over here, you've got Atom Smasher over here, and then you've got Cyclone over here. And basically what we're seeing is like the first time the DC universe is actually doing what the MCU does, which is not being lazy and relying on your top IP like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but actually taking some of these other heroes from like the Golden Age or the Silver Age, whatever, and bringing them to life and making them actually like making us be what's the word? Curious about their backstories. So Dr. Fate ends up being, I would say, like an analog, yes, to Mr. Doctor Strange, but he also has serious Professor X things going on because he's got this mansion, he's rich, he's got his own little Blackbird like plane, and he's kind of like a sort of like a leader to this Justice Society. You've got Atom Smasher and Cyclone who are young, they're like, you know, kind of younger recruits who are being shown the ropes, and you got Hawkman who is kind of like, I would call him basically Falcon, but buffer, meaner, and then also just he's very just dualistic, so it's either good and evil. Adam, however, is like, yes, he's an anti-hero, and basically they're assembled to kind of stop him because he's kind of like, you know, he's kind of rogue, and that's what Amanda Waller is all about. So anyway, I wanted to give you a little bit of that. I want to say the other things I liked about the movie is that definitely the fight scenes were ridiculous. Like one of the things I loved about Man of Steel was how you'd have like the Kryptonians just kind of like zip, 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 like boom, 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 boom. Like it was just like a lot of that was happening. So I thought that the fight scenes were great. There's a lot of killing, but the killing was done in a very almost humorous way. So if you ever watched like the old James Bond's movie with Roger Moore, and people die, but it's funny. Like that's actually what happens in this movie. There's a lot of Terminator 2-esque kind of dynamics going on. Again, from a representation standpoint, gotta go here. I'm ranting, I know, but like you don't see a lot of like Middle Eastern Arabic stuff happening. I mean, we did see that a little bit in Miss Marvel, but that's about it. So for me, it was refreshing. It also asked a very kind of really poignant question, which is, okay, why is it that superheroes don't interfere when countries are being invaded and kind of like oppressed? Like what, so why don't they do that? You know, it's a very complicated question to ask. And I know that one of the negative reviews that I read said, you know, that was cool, but you didn't do anything with it, okay? And they call that negative. What I say is it's a superhero movie. The fact that they even asked that question is already impressive in and of itself. There's more I could say. There really is, but I also don't want to make this a monologue because I'm so fucking excited. But I think ultimately what I loved was the fact that The Rock didn't overshadow anyone. If anything, I think he used this film to set the stage for a new future of the DCU with compelling heroes that I actually like. And I forgot to mention, last but not least, the human characters, as in the mom, the son, and the uncle were great and hilarious, and I actually gave a shit about them. So ultimately, this movie could have been so bad, but it wasn't. I think it actually was good. And I guess that's my first impassioned speech about it. There is a review on my page, so if you want to know more in depth, it's all there. And yeah, I'm gonna.
Did you put it on just for the sake of asking? Did you do it on Fanalog also, or is it only on?
It's only on my personal page, but maybe I'll throw it on Fanalog. That's not probably a good idea.
Yeah, it's cross promotion. We'll make you. We will make each other cool.
Awesome. So yeah, that's my opening salvo. Time for Andy's retort.
It's a good salvo. there are few things that I will be contrary to what you said.
By the way, I was very spoiler free, but I know Kevin wanted spoilers, so maybe we'll spoil, maybe we won't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do not care if you spoil it. If you don't, that's fine too. But like for me, do not worry about spoiling it.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll spoil or not. So for people who haven't seen it, just know you might get spoiled. um I agree with you. It was not a Rock movie. He is a character in the film. He is not this is not the Fast and the Furious, right? He is definitely in the film, but it's not The Rock we're watching in a tight skin suit with superpowers. It's definitely not that. The fight scenes were dynamic. They were well done. They were not overdone or underdone. They were appropriately done and fantastic. I cannot say anything bad about them. The characters, all of them, I enjoy a lot. I love Dr. Fate. I love Atom Smasher. I will say you called her Cyclone. Do we know that that's her name now?
Yeah, I went to Wikipedia to make sure.
All right. So my first argument is that when we talked earlier today, neither him or I knew what her name was. So the movie moved so fast, we didn't even know one of the main characters' names. Right. So that's my first argument. Like, we called her the girl with the tornado girl, right? So that's what we called her.
Yeah, but she's hot. I made sure to say she's hot and the mom is hot. By the way, I gotta say, I care about hotness. Everyone knows this. So for me, it's like hotness is important, and this movie was well cast from a next standpoint. Keep going.
Yes. I actually, so I will say this. I enjoyed this movie for sure. The same way I enjoyed the first Avengers movie. But the reason why I didn't like this movie is because the first Avengers movies came with like 6 movies before that gave us all these characters and gave us why Black Widow's there, gave us an Iron Man, gave us a Hulk, gave us Captain America. We had the backstory for the characters in this movie. So this movie didn't do that. It was a 2.5 or 2 hour and 6 minute movie that just like vomited on the screen and didn't give us any backstory. This was not a Black Adam origin movie, although that's what I'm going to see. Sorry.
Bless you.
I apologize. That's it.
3 times a lady.
One more time. No, now we're done.
God.
I apologize. I should have muted myself. I did not.
You're fine.
I love Dr. Fate. It was a complete ripoff. A rip-off. I don't care who came first in the comics, but on screen, it was a rip-off of Doctor Strange. Straight rip-off. The only way it could be a more rip-off is if they had the same color costume. They didn't. Outside of that, the way everything was a ripoff. Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, a A-list actor, is dead now in the DCU. Supposedly. I mean, we don't know if he's still alive, but in this movie, he showed up, he fought, he gave his life to save the movie, and now he's gone. So a major character is toast. And we have really zero backstory for him. He's just gone now. Atom Smasher, plucky comic relief. He was great. I enjoyed him. He was a fun time. I don't even know who the actor's name is. I have no idea who he is. I've never seen him before.
I've read that he does a good job, but he's a little underutilized in this.
Yeah, I would have loved to see a whole Atom Smasher movie where he got his powers, why he has his powers. That would have been good to know. Like I have no connection to him. There's no reason for me to want to like him or want him to succeed. He's just a guy who's basically showing up for work. He's like a garbage man. Like, we got to take out this garbage now. He had no. I had no connection to him. Mr. Cyclone. What's the name?
Cyclone.
Before this podcast, sorry, I sneeze now. I have snot. Before this podcast, I had no idea what her name was. And when we talked earlier, we didn't know either. She was introduced as like not even plucky relief, just like a character that somehow we needed in the story. There was no reason for her to be there that I saw. Hawkman, same thing. He's like if you were to push Batman and Iron Man together, like maybe that's Hawkman. He didn't want to kill anybody, and he had all these special. End of the story. This would have been a great movie if we would have had 4 to 5 movies before that gave these characters reasons to be in this movie, and there were none. It was like what's the analogy that I gave you? I like the best. It was like taking my girlfriend to go see Age of Ultron without having her see any other movie before that, and then asking her how she thought she liked the movie. She'd be like, I don't fucking understand it. Why did all these people do those things? That's why I didn't like it. I didn't like it because it was not well done. I didn't like it because it was not well acted. I didn't like it because the cinematography wasn't good. All those things were fine. I didn't like it because I couldn't connect to any character at all. It felt like I was trying to be force fed, and I was already full.
Yeah,
that's what I got.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, and that's what I mean by everything that you're saying. Like to me is like I get it. Like I think that the movie, unfortunately, I think because the DCU is so far behind, they are trying to play catch up. So a lot of their movies are going to feel overstuffed if they're trying to do a lot in a little amount of time. Me again, I was okay with it, and I think that kind of like with the time jumps in House of the Dragon, I think if you have a problem with time jumps, you're probably also going to have a problem with this movie because a lot of the things aren't really explained. I do know that they actually came out with comics for each character. I was doing my research afterwards. That actually act as a prequel to this movie, so they exist. But most people aren't going to be looking for the comic to watch before they watch the movie. But I am someone who, like I liked it. I felt like there was a very X-Men-esque, like you said, First Class. There was an X-Men-esque quality to the JSA. And learning, I love the chemistry actually between Atom Smash and Cyclone because he's like asking her how she got her powers, whatever, and she's like, yeah, like some creepy guy like kidnapped me and injected me with nanotechnology, and it was a little moment. There were just some funny moments. Yeah, I guess that's it. I think that we had a good discussion about this because I do want to keep this moving. But ultimately it sounds like we may you still don't like it, but I don't know if you hate it as much as you did maybe when we first started, because I was able to show you some of the good things, right? And I think for me, it's everything that you're saying as far as introducing so much without a lot of backstory, I can't say that's wrong. And as far as Dr. Fate goes, okay, this is not, I'll say it. So Dr. Fate pulls off some fucking Thanos on Titan shit many, many times. He basically clones himself and they all swarm these motherfuckers. And it reminds me of how Doctor Strange is able to do that. So it's that was cool. I felt like the Titan battles on Infinity War are I remember even sitting in the theater going, I'm so happy I'm alive right now because I never thought I would see a live action comic book fight that is such candy to my eyes. And this movie, every fight to me was candy to my eyes, like especially the Fate shit. So it's like that was amazing. And it sucks now that you know, yes, that he fucking died. But I feel like that was totally like from the very first scene of the movie, you see Pierce Brosnan's character like he's kind of tired. He's sick of being alive. He's sick of the burden of knowing how shit works out. So for him, it was like, yo, here's my chance to go to the great beyond and not have to worry about shit. So I'm just gonna fucking go out in a blaze of glory. And he did.
But do they, so to Andrew's point, or to Andy's point,
Yeah.
do they do a good job explaining Dr. Fate's powers? Because
Oh no,
Dr. Fate, Pierce Brosnan has no powers.
It's
All
the
the
helmet.
powers are in the helmet.
Yeah, they explain that the helmet is what does it. So the
And
helmet, but they
okay.
don't actually explain it. But they basically, but they, it's like without the helmet, like the helmet is what allows everything, and the helmet gets used by other people. Just so you know.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
The helmet in the comics kind of works in the same way like a Green Lantern ring works. Like, right? Like, so if you are Dr. Fate and you die, eventually that helmet is going to find somebody else to permanently take over. One of the things that it has done historically in the comics too has driven its users insane. Like there's a good chunk of story where one of the Dr. Fates he's losing his shit when he does it. It's almost, he's almost more Moon Knight than anything else in his storyline, because you know he's living without the helmet and the helmet's driving him crazy. So I mean I definitely get the frustration from that. I feel like it may not bother me as much as it bothered Andy, only because I do know some of the backstories of these characters. Like I know Hawkman is, he's kind of eternal. Like he dies and is reborn. And but do they talk about Hawk Girl at all and how important that is to his?
She's not even. No, this is still. I think this is also still an intro movie. Like everyone's being introed, and I do think this is an intro movie for Black Adam. I do think it's an origin story. It's told quickly, and it's also he's kind of not really. He is the main character, but there's so much more going on. But I just think we finally got, in my opinion, a DCU that is not fucking Batman. That is not fucking. It's not the Justice League, man. It's something
huge deal.
I love that.
Huge deal. I think. Go ahead.
I think they made this movie in hopes it succeeds, and they put The Rock in it in that role.
Nope. This movie, The Rock was cast in this movie before the MCU existed, 15 years ago.
All right. Well, okay. Then they
before he was The Rock, he kept himself in. Like to give The Rock full credit, this is like him doing the River Cruise movie. Like this is a passion project that he had, and he fucking never let it go. Which is the one thing that you can say about The Rock, is The Rock believes in The Rock, and if he's gonna if he wants to make something happen, like at this point, like I do believe he's gonna make something happen. I think maybe we'll talk about it for a second in a minute too. James Gunn taking over the DC, which is now the DCU. They've gotten rid of the E.
Thank you.
The DCU is now under James Gunn's purview. I think this movie was made outside of that.
Yes,
but from what I've seen, it looks like it's sitting in a place where the next one will easily slide into whatever James Gunn's going to do. And I think to your point, Andrew, yes, this is a starter movie and all these new characters, but this works like an MCU film with the lesser characters. This is the thing that you needed, because when the MCU started, nobody gave a shit about Iron Man. Nobody gave a shit about Captain America. Correct. Everybody wanted the X-Men. Everybody wanted Spider-Man, and that was it. So, yes, DC has its big three. I actually hope that the next Superman movie doesn't come too soon and they work it out.
So we talked about that too, and I'm going to go into that in a second, Andrew. So I agree. I feel like they made this movie in hopes for success so that then they can do prequels for I think you said this, Andrew, so I don't want to take your thunder, but then they can do a Dr. Fate like backstory. They can do an Atom Smasher backstory. They can do a Wind Girl backstory, and I'm doing that on purpose because I don't give a shit. And they can definitely do a Hawkman backstory. Like
Wind Girl, if you see this podcast, just know that I am totally single. And I was gonna say though, the last thing I'll say before we move on is that I think we all agreed, and Kevin, I think you said this too, which is crazy because I was like, I thought this, but we didn't know each other. You said that Wonder Woman 2017 was the closest thing to a Marvel film that the DCEU ever did. And now I would say Black Adam. Black Adam is an MCU fucking film. And that to me, I think is a huge compliment to the DCU. And I'm again, I got just chills again just saying that. I think it was a triumph, and it's a triumph for the fans. And the movie was also about really how the gods and the people in charge can get it wrong, and the fact that really it's the people who get it. And that's what a huge message the movie was saying. And the movie was also a victory for Gray. I forgot to mention that too. Didn't even put that in my damn review. But this movie was saying that not everything is black and white. Sometimes you need the gray. And fucking Adam is the gray that can save the day. And that fucking rhymed. That's amazing.
Everything Andrew said, I 100% agree with. I again, as much as I didn't like it, it wasn't because it wasn't a good movie. It was because
all the things
it didn't have the build up that I thought it required to have the movie that it had,
and have the impact that it would have, like especially with Doctor.
Exactly. Now, the one thing I before just real quick, I'll truncate it. One of the things Andrew asked me on our call is, where does Black Adam go after this? Which I thought was a great question. And my answer was, well, I answered two ways. One, not on this earth. They can't have a Black Adam 2 where he's continued to defend the continent that he's from. Like that's if they did that, that's stupid. Like that would not be a good movie at all. So my first instinct was like, well, he's got to go to another planet. He's got to go somewhere else and to go defend some other people, another planet, which would be great for the DCU actually, to go and bring the cosmos in like the MCU has done. DCU is only, for the most part, I mean, we do have some aspects of otherworldly people, but for the most part, everything has been on Earth. But since we know that Henry's back, if we had Man of Steel 2 against Brainiac, and then Brainiac introduces red kryptonite towards the end of the movie, and the movie ends not in a way that is a happy ending, where we have Superman under the influence of the red kryptonite, and then we have Amanda Waller finding Black Adam and being like, we got to have you come bring down Shazam or bring down Superman. That would be a great Black Adam 2 movie. Black Adam, v Superman, with the help of probably Shazam and everybody else. That'd be a dope movie.
It'd be interesting. It is problematic because I don't see Black Adam necessarily leaving Earth. He is all about his country. Like even in the comics, like
watch the movie. He's not all about his country. He's not.
I think he was. I think that he
wanted to leave. He said he wanted to go, and it's not his country anymore.
No,
that's
that
bullshit.
Was in the beginning. That was in the beginning. But after he comes around, I think personally, what I would do honestly is I want to see him go dark again. I mean, because I feel like he started off as kind of just ambivalent. He becomes good. But I think that to really make things interesting, he's got to be villainous. I mean, it's there.
Yeah. Well, he's he's very Doctor Doom-esque in the way that he treat in the comics, and the way he treats his country, like that. Those are his
That's all he cares
people.
about.
That's
Yes.
is he rules this country, and he does care about his people, right? He's not like in the comics, he's not really about like total world domination, right? Like he's Kandak is his place. You don't fuck with that, and he'll leave you alone. Like that's kind of the thing about Black Adam. Um, he has his beef with Shazam because their powers should be similar. They should come from the wizard Shazam. That's where everything should come from. And so, that they have their inherent beef because of who they are. So uh that'll be that's what still bothers me, that Shazam isn't
Okay, I'm glad
in
you
this
said that.
one.
So basically, the way I put this in my review too, the way they explain his backstory, it actually makes total sense why Billy Batson has nothing to do with this shit. Like it's well done. And I know that even reading, I know we're talking about way too long about this damn movie. I know that even reading up on it, Black Adam's origin has changed substantially many times. And in this movie, they're kind of going with the latest one, like David Goyer, like post 2000s did it. But basically, I'll just say, there is kind of a little twist that I'm not going to talk about, but there's a twist involved in the origin story that also I think adds a little depth to the story. But no, I cannot wait for Billy Batson and fucking Adam to meet, because yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I think it'll be a very interesting dynamic.
What do you think, just before it gets here, not knowing anything that's going to happen between now and then, but what is your take on the very like jovial Zach Levi
Yeah.
Shazam versus what you saw in Black Adam? How is that going to mesh
Yeah,
together?
it's going to be fucking weird. But I think that because we see him and Atom Smasher, who's very much Ant-Man in this movie,
I
I
heard that.
think that they can make it work. They can make it work, because that's the other thing. I feel like Vin Diesel could have easily played back Adam too, but the difference is Vin doesn't have the range, I think, that Dwayne has. I think Vin is straight up stoic. If you've seen Riddick, like, he's the same thing. He's just basically an anti-hero. But Dwayne can actually be warm too. So he can be stoic, but he can be warm. And but I just think that they're such different characters. Like, they're so different. And that but they share. I mean, fucking the wizard from Shazam, or Shazam himself, is in Black Adam. You do see him. So it's like they are tied. But how they get their powers, believe it or not, like, you think they're the same, but they're not. And that's what I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
And
they don't necessarily get their powers in the same way,
no,
even in the comics, but from the same starting location, right?
well, I'll just say this. Like, I know that they get powers from different sets of gods. That I do know, okay?
Mhm.
But it's even deeper. Like, the movie makes a twist that's even different than that. And I just don't want to say anything more than that. I think you deserve to see for yourself how that plays out. But and okay, one last thing I'll say is, like, I said this to Andy too. Shazam, as we talked about, didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, it was
Yes, yes.
kitty family movie slash horror film. Like, what? This movie never, I think, tonally, it always knew what it wanted to be from start to finish. So it was consistent. So that's what also made it better. So then we got into the ranking of the DC films, and that's where me and Andy definitely didn't agree. So we don't have to get that now. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to your opinion on it. I do think you're going to be somewhere in the middle. You're going to pick it to shit, but I think you're not going to hate it, personally.
You're not
Yeah.
going to make it through. Not a chance. Not a chance.
All right. So we hit Hereditary, we hit Black Adam. The one new thing that I watched that I'll throw a quick recommendation out for. If you got Hulu, Reboot on Hulu is a fun little sitcom with Keegan Michael Key, um, and what's her name? Fucking Greer, not Pam Greer. Fuck, I can picture her too. She's in everything. She's hilarious. Dude from it's obviously I can't fucking remember any names.
I
Johnny
got you.
Knoxville,
Judy Greer,
Judy Greer, Johnny
Paul
Knoxville.
Reiser, Johnny Knoxville. Yep.
So the premise of this show is that there was like a 90s 80s sitcom that went off the air, and now they're trying to reboot it, which is great because it's on Hulu, but they kind of mock the reboot process incessantly, and they make fun of like the structure at Hulu of like they've got an exec who is the head of comedy who has never worked in comedy at all. Like she got there from working her way up some other ladder. But it's funny. Like it's a behind the scenes, like we're rebooting the show and all the things that go into it. And it's been a lot of fun. I haven't finished the season. I think the last episode is out now. But it's good. It's fun. It's got a comedy. If you're a dirty old man like myself, I thought that I would never see Judy Greer's boobs, but you do in the first episode. I was not prepared for that. I was like, it happened, and I was like, wait, what? Like, because I've seen Judy Greer in so much for so long. I mean, she's on Archer. Like, she's hilarious. Like, she's so funny. And there's just the scene where she's changing and she's just topless, and you're like, oh, okay. Like, you're just not ready for it. Just like if it was. And I think it's their way of showing that they're behind the scenes of a family show and not a family show, right? Like I think they do it for a purpose, and it works. But yeah, it's funny that way. So
duly noted.
Yeah, and then but yeah, I highly recommend it. And then the everything else I watched this week while I was traveling, because I spent a bunch of time working this week. So I watch movies on the plane, and I usually watch things I don't love on the plane. I got lucky this time, man. I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I certainly get the hype. I can see how it may not have been for everyone. It's definitely wacky. Like it's nuts. It's a little weird. But it's got a shitload of heart. Like just that relationship between her and her husband, and how that works, and so many things that happen in that movie. It's weird. It's a weird movie, and you can see how maybe it wasn't and maybe it was going to be something else. Like you said, Jackie Chan was originally cast in the part.
Yes.
It wasn't for her, which I think about that and I'm like, what the fuck would that movie have been if it was Jackie Chan in that part? Because it would have been completely different. Like it would have been completely different. So that seems like it was a major retooling after he didn't show up.
For sure.
But she was fantastic. The girl that plays her daughter, I love her. She was in a couple of Netflix like teen comedies, teen rom-com things, and she's something Conrad, not Conrad. What's her last name?
I can look it up.
Yeah, but anyway, so she's great. You got the kid from the Indiana Jones movies making his comeback.
Yeah.
He was great. He was really great. And some great kung fu. Lots of wacky. Lana Condor, that's her name. And it's fun. It's fun. It deals with Asian culture a lot. Like a lot of the things that they view. It deals with the views on homosexuality and how interesting that is. Like that's a key point to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The husband and the wife relationship. Like it's a pretty deep flick. It's just it's got some weird wonky shit. Like the hot dog fingers lost me for a minute. There's some weird shit in that movie. But it's good. It's really good.
Did you like the raccoon?
The raccoon. Oh, yes. Because it was Raccacoonie instead of Hereditary.
Yes, Raccacoonie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, You go on, sorry.
No. And so yeah, I mean, that's what I've got for that. I know you talked about it more extensively before, so I'd recommend anybody go back and look at the old episodes for more on it.
Yeah,
But it
I
was
think that this
a
is
good flick.
definitely going to be an award season film. I think Michelle Yeoh is totally going to be nominated. I
Oh,
would
she
love to
crushed it.
see uh K Hwai Khan. I'm fucking up his name. Anyway, the kid from Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I think he actually might get a nod. It was cool seeing Jamie Lee Curtis in that role. Like that was
Right.
like
Yeah.
so
Like
random.
when she first showed up, I was like, "Is that Jamie Lee Curtis?" Like you don't even know. Like it's such a trippy part for her,
Yeah, so
and a
trippy.
cool role for her because like the character, because of the multidimensional stuff, you get very different takes on the same character.
Very different takes. I
Yeah.
gotta say the whole paper cut between the hands thing was like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
it gives you
That hurts you.
the
Like you're like, no, thank you, no, thank you.
but yeah, no, it
Um,
had so much heart. And again, I gotta plug Evangelion. So there is a scene where the mom and the daughter are battling, like, and they're battling in different
mhm.
scenarios. Again, that was in Evangelion 3.0 versus 4.0 with Shinji and his dad. So I just feel I have to stand up for anime and say I think that these directors know the beauty of the shit, but because
Oh
it's
yeah,
so niche,
I
they
have
just
no
grab
doubt that
it.
it was an influence.
Yeah,
Like yeah,
but it was so, and I love how the movie was legitimately three parts. There's everywhere or everything,
everything and then
everywhere,
everywhere.
all at once. It
Yeah,
was like it was just I'm getting chills again. I'm the Mr. Chill guy. I just I'm so glad you saw it, and I hope that and A24 again, like A24 is
yep,
key.
yep.
A24 is like the MCU of interesting shit. Like that's what they do. And so if I see A24 now, I'm in. I'm sold. It's just I just love that
Yeah,
brand.
it's they make good shit. That's all I can say.
Kevin, where
Uh,
did you see it?
on the plane,
No,
on an airplane.
so it's not streaming yet.
Yeah, I
It is
don't
now.
believe. I think you still have to rent it. You can
Okay,
get it, but I don't think it's on a service yet.
Correct.
okay.
The next movie that I watch on the plane, if you can find it streaming, I fucking recommend the shit out of it. Is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nicolas Cage.
I think that
Um,
is streaming somewhere.
I'm
I'll look.
sure it is. I
You,
would.
you, you talk. I'll look.
Yeah, it was this amazing fucking like it was great. It was great because it starts off. It is definitely like Nicolas Cage playing a parody of Nicolas Cage, right? Like he's struggling to find his next part because he wants to be a working actor versus a movie star, right? And do these films. And so Neil Patrick Harris plays his agent, and he's just like trying to find him gigs, and he because he's struggling to find his next gig because he goes to dinner with a director, and I think it's a real director. But he goes to dinner with a director, and they're talking over a movie. He's like, "Oh, I love your movie. I love your movie." And he's like, "So, do you want me to read for it?" And the director is like, "No, I don't need you to read for it." And he's like, "Yeah, but I love the script." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't really need you to do that." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to do it anyways." And he does this horrendously bad read, like so over the top and so bad. And the director's just like, oh, okay, and takes off. And so he doesn't get that part. And so the only thing that he has, because he's in a ton of debt right now because he's not working, he gets an offer from this eccentric dude in South America with a ton of money that will pay him $1 million to come for his birthday weekend because he wants to meet Nick Cage. And so he gets there, and it turns out the Pedro Pascal is playing the guy, and he loves Nicolas Cage. And so at first Nick Cage is like, well, fuck, this is stupid, I just want my money and get the fuck out of here. And then they have their moment where they even though they've already met, it's like their meet cute where they find out that they have shit in common, and then it just turns into this fucking incredible bromance between Nick Cage and Pedro Pascal, and it's so fantastic. And it turns out that when Nick Cage shows up on the island, they think that he is there, or sorry, the CIA finds out that he's there because Pedro Pascal's character is this huge drug lord trying to take over the
Mm.
country, and the character never feels that way, right? So like Nick Cage is like, well, fuck you. There's no way this dude is a drug lord, and so they have this bromance because the whole reason that Pedro Pascal wanted Nick Cage to come is because he wrote a script and he wants him to make it with him, and they start to rewrite it, so they've got all this work where they're working like it's, I mean, it is so fucking fun, and the dynamic between the two of them is fantastic. It was an amazing movie. It was ridiculous at parts, and in most of the parts, to be fair, but like some of the ridiculousness is like sweet and fun and funny between these two dudes, and it just plays out. Like at one point they like trade shoes, and he's like, do you want to keep my shoes and I'll keep your shoes? Like it's just weird shit, and it's so great. So I can't recommend it enough. And if it's streaming somewhere, definitely catch it. And if it's $3 to rent, maybe rent it. It's really good. And then I watched Top Gun Maverick, which I don't need to talk much about. You guys already covered it, but I can say that everybody that has talked about it so far that I've heard is right. It was excellent, dude. Like I really expected it to have a cheese factor because it was the sequel, and it really didn't. It was a well-told story. The moments that needed to be heartfelt were heartfelt. I think if you saw the original Top Gun, there's some points in that movie that really kick you in the nuts. You've got the scene when Rooster's playing at the piano and Maverick's outside, and they do all the flashbacks to Goose. The first one, that one gets you right there. And then the Iceman scene is well done. That hits you in the feels. Everything else plays out relatively predictably, but not in a bad way. And I think I messaged you guys too. Like, there's just something sexy about fucking air battles, man. Dogfights and air battles and all that shit. Like, maybe I'm sure that's an inherently male thing. I think probably girls aren't like, yeah, that F-18 is sexy as shit. But like seeing that stuff like that, for me, that like I love that stuff, and to see it, and then to throw in the old F-14, which throws you back to the original one too. Like, it was dope. It had some fantastic moments to it.
My girl rewinded that scene twice.
Which one?
The fight battle.
Yeah, just the basically the end, right, where everything's going down.
Yeah, and then we went to bed.
Had your own air battle.
I did not.
Yeah, I honestly, like, I would consider buying Top Gun. It was good. It was really good.
I mean, I think it's one of the rare films where the sequel actually is better.
Yeah,
and I think that, like, it's so dangerous because the first Top Gun was iconic, right? So to go back, I mean, there's so many ways they could have got it wrong, and only a few ways they could have got it right. And I also like The Rock. Like, I also got to applaud Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise is not like the most popular person outside of the movies. The film was supposed to come out in 2019. He's like, then it was 2020. The pandemic happens. They want to stream it. He's like, fuck you. And they wait and insist on making it in the movies, and the movie just blows the fuck up and exceeds everyone's expectations. And you go back to a classic and it's actually better. How many sequels to a classic are actually better than the original? I mean, I can't even think of any off the top of my head. I really can't. Maybe
it's pretty uncommon now. No, I give it Terminator.
Yeah,
and like, it's a similar thing. There's a lot of time between Terminator and Terminator 2. Like, granted, there's way more between Top Gun and Maverick, but I think to make a good sequel, it almost seems like maybe you need that break. Like, because I've been watching the Back to the Future movies with my kids, and Back to the Future 1, great. Back to the Future 2, so fucking cheesy because they didn't know what they were doing with the time jump to the future. Like, so much about that is so corny that it didn't work, and it came out immediately after Back to the Future. Right.
So,
and so
you're right, but Maverick's not a sequel in the sense that it is like the next movie after Top Gun. Yes, it's a sequel, but
I mean, it doesn't directly carry the story.
If Top Gun didn't exist and we just watched that movie, would we enjoy it as much? I mean, I dare say we would.
I don't know that you'd enjoy it as much because you would miss some of the emotional impacts that you get
Really?
from the goose scene,
Yes,
from the
I mean,
Iceman
okay, so
scene.
I gotta jump
But
in.
they,
So,
I mean,
like,
they work, but you get more from
yeah,
them.
yeah,
in
like
the two movies.
How many of our kids watch that movie? All of my kids. I mean,
My
no, that's
oldest
not
has seen it.
the my kids have seen my children that I produce have seen Top Gun 500 times because their uncle is handicapped and that's his favorite movie, so he watches it all the time. But Allie's kids, I think they've seen Top Gun once or maybe not at all, and they thought Maverick was a masterpiece. Like there's no, they didn't need to see Top Gun to enjoy Maverick. Like to me, it's almost so far past. I mean, it's what 30 years,
yeah,
20
it's
years.
long. It's 86 to 2002.
I
Isn't it?
was 9. We were
Yeah.
9 years old. We were 9. It's not a sequel.
Okay, so
It's
here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. So I watched the first movie when I was a kid, barely got it, didn't understand it. Take my breath away. That scene was like that. I knew as soon as
Yeah.
I had to get up and leave because like that was awkward to be watching that show with my dad, my parents, basically, right?
Right.
Anyway, I go back and watch the first movie literally the day before I watch this. Fuck it. I'm calling it a sequel. I watched the sequel. And what I loved was there was so much fan service in Maverick because even the way it starts, the music, the title credits, everything is a mirror of the first film. Then, like he literally that whole Iceman scene, the fact that his rival now becomes like a high ranking person, but actually still has Maverick's back. And in that last moment where he's like, who's the better pilot? And then he's like, let's not ruin this moment.
Yeah,
Like that was such a great scene. And then to have the F-14, the F-14 to me, I was telling Kevin, or I think even in our chat, was like the Millennium Falcon moment. Like, the Force Awakens really kicks in when they're like, that old junk heap, they look over, it's a fucking Falcon. So for me, it's like when you see that F-14, you're like, yes, like the F-14 is an iconic part of the first film. It's the star of the damn movie besides the actors. So to bring that back and then to even have like Goose's son play the same position that his dad did, like, yes, the movie does by itself is a fantastic film. But I think that just like Rogue One enriches the first episode 4, I think that Top Gun 86 totally enriches the Maverick experience. I just haven't. It was a movie made with love. And I felt like the movie marries the old Tom Cruise with the new Tom Cruise. I feel like it's like Top Gun mixed with Mission Impossible because as soon as he bails out of the plane, it turns into a Mission Impossible film, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that was great because I was ready for him to just be fucking dead and be ending with it. So the fact that they actually like he survives and Goose actually like sacrifices himself too, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And they're just like, now it's a fucking action movie, and they fucking find the plane, they launch that shit, and then they have a fucking dogfight. What? Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, we don't deserve this. You're way too good to us. And now, you know what? Fine. If it's not a sequel, maybe it's just like a soft reboot of the universe. I don't know, but the point they can go off with Goose. I don't know. All I'm saying is that it was a great movie, like you said, like Kevin said, and it was just a triumph for Cruise's vision because this was Cruise's vision. So good for you, man.
So we all are in agreement that Andor is one of the best Star Wars properties, period, right?
100%.
It's pretty excellent.
I know
live action.
Yes,
series.
Sort
of. It's a bit of a
Mandalorian over it.
Would I put no? I'm saying I wouldn't even say I'm saying Star Wars properties period. With the movies, TV shows. I don't care if it's live action or animated. It is for me right now. Gun to my head, it might be number one. It might go Andor, Rogue One, Empire, and then we'd have to figure
That's
out
the
after that.
craziest shit because I feel like we agree on other things, right? Like me and you both agree that BBS, the Ultimate Edition, is the shit against everybody else. We both
Yeah, I hate that
agree
shit.
that we both agree that Empire and Rogue One are probably tied. And it's
Yeah.
like I, but I think I give Empire the edge just because of that kind of, for me, sentimental value. Like
Yeah.
Empire gets the edge, but they're fucking both amazing movies. But
If
yeah,
they made
we're so
if they made
different.
Empire today,
Oh my god.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, right. With
Yeah,
the graphics they have or the effects, man, it's rap.
that's why Empire gets the edge for me, because they did that in 79 or 78, whenever, or
80 actually.
81, 80, whenever they
Yeah.
did it, when they were still, that 98% of that's fucking models.
Yeah.
It's all there was no CGI. You had a couple of blue screens with some explosions and stuff, but generally speaking, it was all practical. And I think that's actually what made the sequels,
Barrel.
8, 9, 7, 8, and 9, so much better than the prequels.
Right.
Is the going back to the practical effects as much as they can. And it's funny, if you watch the first Star Wars and you watch it with like a super critical eye, like, yes, it's all practical, but you could tell that they were still on a budget. Like if you watch the scene where Leia's putting the thing in R2-D2 before he bails in the very beginning, like if you look at the background and just really look, especially now that things are in HD and everything, you're like, oh, that's some janky shit, dude. like it's definitely, they worked with what they had, and to their credit did an amazing job. But they were certainly, they weren't Star Wars at that time, right? Like they were an up and coming movie that nobody really expected to be very good.
Yeah.
No, Andor is legitimately, I don't know how they do better than that. Like if I were the next, the next series coming after this, which is I think The Mandalorian, I'd be scared shitless, because you're only going to be compared to that going forward. And holy shit, the music, just the score alone, and the music choices they've made are just amazing. You are so gripped. Like I find myself holding my breath. I mean, the acting and all that stuff's great, but just the way they have the music and the way they have it scored, it's just like, oh wow. I'm on the tip of my seat the whole time, just waiting to see what's going to happen next. The way it's filmed, the grittiness of the rebels, the crispness of the Empire, the way they have the characters, how the rebels are still in a bit of a disarray, how they not all of them understand what they're fighting for, and they're all fighting for different things. They're certainly not unified, and how the Empire is just like, it is black and it is fucking white. There is zero in between. Yes, exactly. It's almost like an AI. It's just like there is no in between. And even the infighting that they have in the Empire is still black and white.
I like it
because I love it. It's all about power. And that jackass.
I love how the beginning of it too. Like it's the Empire's a fucking corporation.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're literally, like, at one point they're basically talking about TPS reports. Like they're just like, you're doing a good job, but can you get your numbers up? Like
well, it's a really good interpretation of most of the world's governments, and frankly, including ours, where it's their job is to control the narrative and the people according to what they want them to do.
But I like too that, like, so many people on that show just feel like they don't even understand what's going on. Like they're literally just doing their subordinate tasks because that's their job.
Right.
And they don't understand the impact that it has on other stuff.
It's so good. It's so fucking good. I never looked to see how many episodes the first season was. I just never looked. And watching, Game of Thrones season end, our show, Kevin, uh,
ROP.
Lord, yeah, Rings of
Rings
Power, and then Hulk end. I was like, oh, I'm so fucking annoyed. Andor's going to be ending too. And then I looked, and it's 24 episodes, and we're a third of the way in.
Well, it's only 12. The next 12 or next
Season.
or next season 2. So there's 12 and 12. So
really,
we're 2/3 of the way through this season.
because IMDb has it for
it
24.
says 24, but it's listing the 12 for next season also.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's still
I think
12.
we had this exact discussion
We
last
did.
time we recorded, because I thought it was like 8,
Like,
and I thought we were
yeah.
almost done, and then we looked it up and it was 12.
Yep.
And so but I'm excited for it. You know, I may do the same thing I did last week and just splice this Andor talk back near the end and make it fit in so we don't rehash. But I think Andor is great. I think where it's going is great. And for sure, for series, like I love the first couple of seasons of Mandalorian. I think they're great. I think Book of Boba Fett I don't love. I think they missed the mark on that one.
Yeah.
But
I
this
didn't hate
this
it, but
I
it
think
was, yeah, I agree.
yeah, it just wasn't as good as I hoped it would be.
No.
Because, and number one, because I've never been a Boba Fett fan. Like, I've always hated just the whole principle behind Boba Fett, that he was a fucking marketing tool for toys, and everybody fell in love with this guy who, if you watch the original trilogy, shows up for like 3 minutes and gets shot into a Sarlacc pit and eaten. Like, he's the worst fucking dude ever. Like, he didn't really catch Han Solo. He was just in the right place at the right time, and then called Darth Vader, who actually caught Han Solo. Like, fucking nothing in there matters, you know? Like, and everybody like loved Boba Fett, and I was like, he's fucking useless. And then when he showed up in Mandalorian, that was the first time I was like, okay, Boba Fett's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And then in his own series, they kind of were like, they kind of nerfed him again, because it was him coming out of the pit and recovering, which is, I mean, in its own is badass, getting out of the pit, no doubt. But it was him kind of relearning himself and all that, and I don't know, it wasn't as exciting as I had hoped for. But it was not bad. Like, I definitely, when I'm complaining about it, I'm comparing it to like a lot of other good stuff. But yeah, that's what I've got for that. But I like it. I like Andor a whole lot. Like you said, I think it could end up being the best damn thing that they have.
Where would you put it right now?
It's in the top 3 or 4. Like,
Really?
it's just good. Like, I need to see where it goes. I think the reason that Rogue One is always going to be higher for me is that Andor is a slow burn, but it's also a slow burn over a long period of time. Like, Rogue One was more exciting for me overall because it happens in such a compressed window, right? You're looking at like 2 hours of Rogue One. The storytelling is great, the acting's great, all the characters are great, but it's definitely a more palatable time period to watch. Like, it's easier to watch a couple of hours of something and be blown away. Like, if you want to watch Andor again, you're settling in for a half a day, you know, or a day of watching to get through it. So that's the disadvantage for me. It doesn't make it bad. It just means it's a lot more to take in.
I've thought about this a lot lately. I mean, I think I brought it up on our podcast, Kevin, a couple of weeks ago, but I wonder. So I'm gonna throw the dice and say, man, if they made Rogue One into an 8-episode season, about half an hour, 40 minutes an episode, I think it'd be better than it even was. Like, I'm all of these properties that are commercial free snippets of the story that are pieced together so well. Like, I love the movies. Like, I cherish going to the movies, and I have no problem sitting through a 3-hour movie at all. I'm on board for it. Not a problem at all. And I frankly think movies with that much story to tell should be 3 hours. Like a 90-minute movie, that's for comedies and maybe some horror, but the rest of them should be.
Yeah, and shitty movies. Like a lot of times, if you see something that runs right around 90 minutes, you're like, this is
Yeah,
going to be bad. Like
yeah.
they're worried about page count. They're not worried about storytelling.
But how good? I mean, Rogue One, just at face value, was just amazing.
Yes, for sure.
What if they had 6 hours to tell that story over eight episodes? Like, I think it'd be better. Like,
I don't
I'm
know. Like
really struggling.
like the way that Rogue One plays out, though. Like it's almost like whenever we get to the end of Andor, I feel like Rogue One is almost like the last episode of that, or the last couple episodes of that. Like there's not a lot of story missing from Rogue One. Like I don't really need more from that particular story, but it will fit well at the end of Andor because, like, what's your complaint from Rogue One? You don't really know Cassian
No.
Andor's story. Well, you're getting
Yeah,
that
yeah.
now. Like,
No, complaint's not the right word because I don't have a complaint about Rogue One at all.
yeah.
But I guess what I'm seeing in Andor is I'm seeing both sides. I'm seeing the rebel side and I'm seeing the Empire side.
Mhm.
In Rogue One, it was 80% rebel, 20% Empire, maybe even less than that, maybe 85-15. Like I would have enjoyed seeing more of the Empire and their, not to be able to side with them, but Rogue One was a story about the rebels kicking the shit out of the Empire. Where Andor, they're showing both sides of the story and almost letting you pick. Like, I mean, frankly, I could see people being on the side of the Empire. Like, well, shit, yeah, we want to keep shit under control. We're trying to get because there's no Jedi involvement. There's it's wrong what they're doing to the educated person. But I mean, how many rednecks would be like, yeah, that's right. That's what we should be doing. Put those motherfuckers down. As I'm wearing this cowboy hat saying that. Jesus Christ. But like there's certain people that probably would watch Andor and side with the Empire because it's not, deep and decrepit and horrible. It's just like we're just trying to keep shit in order. Where in Rogue One, I would have loved to see more Empire, and we would have got that in a series.
Yeah, maybe. The thing that like the thing I always come back to with Rogue One is they told the story in the time that they were supposed to tell it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anything
No.
else would be in addition to that story. That's
Yeah.
not bad necessarily, but there's a reason that most I don't know about most people, but a lot of people look at Rogue One as the best Star Wars story because it tells the story it's trying to tell.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Rogue One's my favorite Star Wars property, period, right now. I mean, it is better than Empire. It it's my favorite property. So I'm certainly not dissing it at all.
Yeah, for sure.
But I wonder how much better it maybe could have been if it had.
I also think though that by the time Rogue One happens, like again, one of the key things that they're doing in Andor is oppression breeds rebellion. So by the time you get to the Rogue One stage, the Empire is no longer this like innocuous corporation. They're straight up assholes who are straight up oppressing people, and you have to get them that angry, as in the Empire, to get the people to rise. So
I would say too, though, that I wonder if and maybe it's a little bit to Andy's point too, that you're always going to have those people that are so far down the totem pole that they just don't know how bad the Empire is. Yeah. Like they're working for the Empire and they just don't know what they're doing. Like they don't know. Like it's almost like they're building the cog that goes into the set of gears that goes into the engine of the car that has the cannon. You know what I mean? Like, like they're so small in the process that they don't know what they're doing.
Well, it's like the guy in Andor, who was the company guy who got fired. Now he's working at the fuel.
He's a true believer. He's a true believer. I don't think of him as necessarily an ambitious, innocent motherfucker. I think he is to me is it Krennic? Is that his name?
Are you talking about the Kyle MacLachlan looking dude?
Yes, Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah.
No, he wants to rise. I think he does want to
Yeah.
be fucking Krennic, or the guy who's the main guy in the first Star Wars movie. Who takes the credit for the Death Star. I forget his name. But yeah, I see him as a baddie, straight up. Him and the blonde chick, like they're totally gonna, like, you know, be allies because she recognizes that fire. They both look around themselves and say, wow, I'm surrounded by fucking imbeciles and people who don't get it. And when that guy tried to throw her under the bus and she like threw him under the bus in front of like the leader guy, and the leader guy is like, you know what? I hear what happened, but I'm with her, you know. And the guy, that was a great fucking moment. Kevin, you haven't seen that part yet, but because that happened in episode 7. But keep going. But I'm just saying, yeah. All I'm saying is this: I personally think Rogue One was fine as is. I hear you, I really do. But it's like, I think the whole point of Rogue One was just to show that final last gasp that led to. It was basically saying the plans of the Death Star, you know, were not easy to get. As a matter of fact, a lot of shit went into getting Luke to that point. It wasn't just one guy, you know, with the Force who made it happen. It was a whole rebellion under it, and that's
a groundswell.
Yeah, and that is a powerful statement to make. That's my take on it.
I'm with you, but to your point, this peon, right, who is working for a company in an off-world place, not for the Empire. I hear what you're saying, but he is trying to just be. I mean, he modified his own uniform because he thought it was, you know, more important to have it be fitting, right?
Yeah.
You know, he added piping, right? But he is not. He is like the definition of a trumper to me, right? Somebody who is just straight up, this is what I believe, and not understanding what it really is. Like, these are the rules I have to follow. So this is what I'm going to do 100% of the time. I don't care who gets in my way. I'm going to defy my superiors who told me not to do what I'm doing. I'm going to do everything I can do because this is what I feel is right. Right. But he doesn't know the Force. He doesn't know Palpatine. He is blinded by his reality. He doesn't see anybody else's reality.
Well, I don't think anyone over there really knows what's going on with the Sith. Like, I mean, that's like I said, like we talked about it last on the last podcast with Kevin. Like, basically, Palpatine and Vader are like the Illuminati. Like, they motherfuckers do not know about the Force lightning. None of them.
As a matter of fact, if you watch, if you think about what happens in the first Star Wars movie,
yes.
in New Hope, they're talking about Vader like he's a legend, right?
Yes.
Like, the Force isn't real. Like, this guy is, you know, he really is. He's almost a mythical character, and more so, I think, than the Emperor. Like, people talk about Palpatine all the time.
Yeah,
but Vader's a dude when you talk about, like, he kind of doesn't exist to people until he shows up. And that's still, I think, is what makes that moment in Rogue One so fucking badass. When he shows up and he's just in there, like, because if you think about it too, like, watching the original trilogy, you've only sort of ever seen Vader be really badass against a single person at a time. And he's supposed to be the baddest dude
in the galaxy, period,
right? Like, because we don't even know at that point that Palpatine isn't just in charge, that he's actually, like, he's Vader's daddy, you know? Like, so, like, to see that scene in Rogue One, like, that's the moment that solidifies, yes, Vader, you don't fuck with Darth Vader, you know, because we got more out of Kylo Ren in the sequels than we did of Vader in the original trilogy, and you know Vader's more badass than Kylo Ren. Like, I mean, you just know that.
You see, what I liked about Kylo Ren's first appearance was when he literally stopped that laser blast in midair.
Yeah,
it was badass.
That is bad ass. Like,
because you're like, they can fucking do that. Like, that's like a timeout. Like, you're like,
Oh, he can stop death. I mean, that's what that implied. Like he can decide when you die.
Yeah, and he did. Like in
He
that
did.
same scene. Like, yeah, yeah.
Are you guys
So, like,
watching Star Wars Legends or Jedi Legends? It's animated.
Someone hit me up.
the Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Tales of the Jedi. That
Yeah,
is.
it's good.
Did you
It's
watch
good.
it?
Yeah. It's important on two fronts because number one, you get the backstory of Count Dooku that you never got.
Yep.
So you know why he's a more of a badass than we knew he was in the prequels, and I think it's good that we got it this way because there was a little bit of a surprise to him being the badass in the bad guy in episode 2.
It gave him context.
Exactly.
It made him realize that he was a good guy that felt the Jedi was being weak and was then softened to the dark side because of that, and then was pulled that direction. Like, to me, watching that series, and I'm not through with it. He's actually, I don't see him as that wrong. Like I get what he did. Now, once he went to the dark side, well, he's fucked.
Yeah.
But
and
his
kind of always end up there, right? Like that's where those stories,
but
turning over the dark side, that's where it always kind of ends up.
But his transition is valid. Like it's fair. Like I actually feel for him a little bit. Like I get it. Like you were seeing things unfold and you didn't like the way they're unfolding, and you tried to go a different direction, and that wasn't allowed, but another group of people allowed that, and then you got sucked in, and all of a sudden you're in a gang and you're killing people. Like it's just I sympathize with him a lot more watching that. It's a really well done series. I think it was needed, and I enjoyed it I'm enjoying it immensely for sure.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, you should totally check it out. It's really good.
And I think the other thing you're going to get out of it too, there's two things in it, and one of them is Dooku, and that gives you some really interesting backstory on him. And you do get to see the moment where he becomes the bad guy, right? Like he
flips the switch. Yeah,
Palpatine brings him in. He's the same way with Anakin, right? Like he cons him in that last moment, gets him at his weakest point, and brings him in. But you also get some Ahsoka backstory. And if you've never watched the Clone Wars, I think this is important. If you haven't watched the Clone Wars, I would see if you can still find the Essential Clone Wars, which takes all of the seasons and just cuts in
I need
the most essential episodes.
Good.
And if you can't do that, then just watch season 7 of the Clone Wars, which is basically Ahsoka's, like the rest of her story. There's a lot of buildup of her to that. But because the Ahsoka series is coming out like next year.
Yeah.
And I just read something today that said, when you're talking about the Star Wars shows, they've done very stylized stuff. Mandalorian is a Western. Andor is a spy thriller, like, kind of espionage story. Ahsoka is going to be a samurai story. So, they have a feel for all these stories they're trying to tell. And I think it's going to be pretty good. Like I said, I think I told you before, but I saw somewhere that Favreau said that this is like Ahsoka is going to be Filoni's best work, which is a thing to say, right? Because Andor's out here crushing it right now. And granted, this is one man's opinion, but I do have faith in Favreau. So if he's saying Filoni is lighting it up with Ahsoka, then I'm pumped.
Yeah.
So, and even if it's not as good as Andor, if it's as good as Mandalorian or better than Mandalorian, I'm happy, right? Like you're still killing it at that point.
It's going to be seriously hard to be better than that's if there's a flaw in Andor, it's that it's too good.
It's a little slow. I mean, there's a lot of time, and not in a bad way. It's just a slow burn. Like
if they didn't release the first 3 episodes in a row, that would have been tough.
Lost people.
Yeah, that would have. Yeah,
100%. I probably would have got through episode 2 and been like, this is annoying. And then I mean, eventually I would have watched it, but the first 3 episodes were needed to be released. Like, I mean, clearly they did it on purpose because it is a super slow fucking burn. But once that match gets lit, holy shit! I held
Yeah.
my breath for. I'm on the treadmill, like, uh, breathe, Andy, breathe. Remembering to breathe, just watching the what was going on. It was just so amazing. I cannot share enough about that show. It is lights out good. So I know that Andrew's eyes were tired to begin with, and now I've had 4 whiskeys, so my eyes are tired too. What do we got left? I don't want to leave if there's something like super important that I want to make sure I expund on.
I think the last thing was House of the Dragon, right?
We got Rings of Power too, real quick, because we saw the
No Rings of
finale
Power.
of Rings of Power. It definitely had its little twist ending, right? You finally get your Sauron moment.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was a cool moment to have. I think there's a lot of things that seem to go
Do you
against
th-
the original
do you
trilogy. Like,
do you think the stranger is
Gandalf?
Gandalf?
I don't. I think he's somebody else. I think he I read
I think
something
he
up on
is.
it where the people that were chasing him are all descendants of Saruman and Gandalf, but not necessarily them. I think the stranger is almost too powerful to be Gandalf, because what we saw of Gandalf in the original trilogy was, yes, he was an excellent wizard, but he didn't become Gandalf until he fights the Balrog and comes back as Gandalf the White, which is him, like, top tier Gandalf, right? Like, that's when he's the badass. So I don't think he's the stranger. Like I said, I think the stranger is maybe a little too powerful to be Gandalf. We'll find out.
I think that is Gandalf, especially the fact that he's with, in the Shire already.
Some hobbits, yeah. It definitely could be, and I wouldn't hate it if it was. I'm not sold on it being him yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. I get that.
I think too, one of the things that I read that is interesting, and I'm curious to see what it really means, is they have said that season 2, now that we know who um, Sauron is going to be like the Breaking Bad of Lord of the Rings. Like, we're going to see him become more and more of the Sauron that we saw in the originals. But it's going to be baby steps, and we only have 3 rings. That's the one thing that is interesting, is that the Elven rings are created now, but in the originals, like, all the rings were created at once. That was the whole point of the rings. So we'll see what happens there and how they tie that in. Because the show was called The Rings of Power, and then they only made 3 of the rings. That was the last thing done in the entire first season. So wasn't really about the Rings of Power at all. So it'll be interesting for sure.
It was about the Rings of Power, but the Rings of Power for that season.
Right. So we'll have to see how quickly, because again, in the beginning, they were talking about building the forge and doing all the things that they had to do to build it, and then they never built the forge that they needed to build, and they didn't do all this. So it's weird. So there's definitely a lot of story left to tell. So I know season 2 is already happening, so I'm not worried about that. But I hope they do well.
All right, Rings of Power done.
Yep. And then the Game of Thrones finale. Did you guys both watch it?
Yes.
So I did not, but I don't care about spoilers. So if you guys want to run through it real quick and at least give your opinions, fire away.
Basically, yeah. So basically, I think this one. So the penultimate episode was about the Greens, and this episode was about the Blacks. And basically, homegirl, the queen, who should have fucking Dracarys their asses, shows up. They're pissed. Like, why the fuck didn't you just kill them right then and there? And she's like, because it's not my fucking battle. So, and I'm not a Kingslayer. So basically, they're just, coming to terms with that. What are we gonna do? And Damon's like, let's fuck him up. and Rhaenyra is like, we don't. I'm protector of the realm. I don't want bloodshed. So basically, she sends her fucking kids on Dragonback to like get support from the different houses to prepare for a potential war. And what happens is, cutting right to the chase, unfortunately, is fucking Luke, the little kid with his little dragon Cyrax. They go to fucking the Baratheon place, Storm's End, whatever. And fucking Daemon and fucking Vhagar is already there, dude. That's where you fucked up. As soon as you saw Vhagar, you should have turned the fuck around and gone home. But instead, he goes and fucking talks to fucking Baratheon guy. Baratheon guy is like, fuck you. Like, what do you have? Like, Aemon's gonna marry my fucking daughter. What can you offer me? Fuck off. So then Aemon's like, okay, well, before you go, Luke, I'm taking your fucking eye. And like, Luke's like, fuck that. He tries to leave. Daemon goes after him. They stop, not Daemon, Aemon. They stop Aemon. Then fucking, Cyrax and Luke are like flying back, like, and all of a sudden, sure enough, fucking Vhagar's behind them, rah, and then fucking they're like, jucking and jiving and whatever, and like, fuck. So then like they fly in a crevice, too small for Vhagar to get in. Then they fly up in the sky, and then fucking, oh, that's right, what happened? They're fucking animals, right? So basically, Cyrax gets mad at Vhagar, right? So without fucking permission, Cyrax, this little ass dragon, fires a little fireball at Vhagar. Fucked up. Fucking Vhagar is pissed. So fucking Cyrax is like trying to get away. Vhagar comes up from behind, and Aemon's like, no, Vhagar, no! And fucking Vhagar just chomps Cyrax and Luke whole. Fucking dragon parts falling out of the sky. Luke is fucking dead. And that's that. So news gets back to fucking Rhaenyra. Her son's fucking dead. And Rhaenyra is like, it's on, bitches. And that's how the episode ends. There's some other shit in there, but I just gave you a quick summary. And did I miss anything?
No, that's how the season ends.
Yeah.
That's the worst part. We gotta wait now
for till 2024.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long wait. I did struggle with the time jumps in this series. It's interesting because the casting was so good, right? Like for me, like I haven't. The casting was amazing. Like to go from the girls that played the young girls to the girls that played the older girls, perfect. It's crazy how Olivia Cook is like, what did they say, like 14 months older than the dude that plays her son. Yeah. And so like that was a trip, but the casting was great. Like I don't want as many time jumps though in the next season. Like I hope we're
done with
good. Good. I think it was interesting, but it was also a waste of storytelling. There's a lot of stuff that happened in there that it seems like they could have told. So I'm glad the next season will have fewer time jumps. I read somewhere that actually Martin wanted more.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, dude, fucking shit drove me crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good show. It's definitely a Game of Thrones show. I still think the original Game of Thrones, barring the last couple seasons, was better than House of the Dragon so far. But I do think Game of Thrones had some tighter storytelling too, because they didn't deal with the time jumps. But I liked it. I didn't dislike it at all. I'm ready. I'm ready for the next season. It's a bummer that we have to wait a while. We'll see which other Thrones shows they throw out there in the meantime. I know they're talking about Arya again. I know they're actually doing the Jon Snow show. And I think there's one more in the mix also. So yeah, Thrones is alive and kicking. It was a little debatable when the show was coming out whether it was going to be any good or not, and it was. So Game of Thrones is alive and well. And I think that is all I've got. I think Andy is ready for bed. He's gonna put some cotton in his cowboy hat and use it as a pillow. And I think I'm good. We, it felt like a long episode, but I think it's actually a pretty reasonably tight episode. We kind of cruised through that, the actual show. So with that, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for downloading if you're listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave comments. We had a lot of comments on the last one. The last episode was a very successful one for us, it seems. So hopefully you like this one. And we'll talk to you.
I'd like to know if they like the cowboy hat. I want to know if this should be a mainstay, because I feel like Andrew's got like the hood, like the hood is iconic, right? Like if Andrew showed up without a hood,
it'd be weird.
like
we
would question that.
If I didn't have my Yankees hat, I think it's been in every single episode. So,
So
we've got our thing. Pete
leave
brings
a comment.
Belly.
Leave a comment with the cowboy hat. Do you want the cowboy hat?
Saying, dude, the cowboy hat is definitely you. Like,
I think it plays, man. I think it plays.
It's fucking you, dude. For sure.
I will continue to give you shit about line dancing, but the cowboy hat plays.
Fans, if you like line dancing, give them shit, because it is awesome, and they give me shit like nobody's business. Swing, line, all that.
Nobody's
shit.
On your side. Nobody's on your side.
You're gonna be masterfully mistaken.
Do they play that at your parties? That boot scoot boogie? Do they play that? That's all.
They
I
have
have.
to.
Boot scoot and boogie.
Yeah,
they do.
They have to.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely have to.
I was not even serious. They fucking do it. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, everybody have an excellent week, and we will see you hopefully next week.
Cheers.
I can't believe this is our first time with this group. Like, I think it's
We've never had AKA before, for reals?
No. Because we've done, like, if you look back, other than the one that you and I did, Andy, it's been me and Andrew for a long time. A lot of the episodes just been the two of us. We had one with Kim.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
And the only other trios was like either it's like me, Kevin, and Kim, or me, Kevin, and Pete. But it's never been me, Kevin, and you. Ever.
Yeah.
So this is history, man. And it just happens to be the one where you found your fucking trademark.
Right. And it was I'm so glad you guys both saw Black Adam, because and I, like I said, when I introed it, like, I fucking love the, like, not only you guys like feel like the complete opposite about it, but it's like the opposite of who you'd expect to feel that way about it, right? Like, there's so much fucking amazing irony to it that I love it.
I literally, Kevin, when you see it, I don't care. If I was in the middle of fucking, I would stop and take your call. If you just texted, I just watched Black Adam, I'm calling you, I'd be like, figure it out.
We'll do this later.
I gotta answer this call. Like, I cannot wait for you or Pete to watch it, and then to either decimate me or clarify me, one of the two.